high, and the dreams that you dream of once in a lullaby. Oh, somewhere over the rainbow, bluebirds fly, and the dreams that you dream of, dreams really do come true. Someday you wish upon a star, wake up where the clouds are far behind me, where trouble melts like lemon drops, high above the chimney top. That's where you find me. Oh, somewhere over the rainbow, bluebirds fly, and the dreams that you dare to, oh why can't I? Oh, someday I wish upon a star, wake up where the clouds are far behind me, where trouble melts like a lemon drops, high above the chimney top. That's where you find me. Oh, somewhere over the rainbow, way up high, and the dreams that you dare to, why can't I?
Good morning and welcome to the celebration of Heather's life. In particular, I welcome her husband Alan and her daughters Mandy and Tanya, her son-in-laws Luke and Adam. Her grandsons Daniel, Ryan, Henry and Otis are all here in our thoughts. I also welcome Heather's sister Gloria, and unfortunately her husband Frank can't be here today. For anyone watching online, I welcome you here today also. Heather would be humbled and appreciate you all taking the time out of your days to attend to celebrate her life. Today is to allow our sorrow and sadness to surface and be expressed in words, tears, reflection, or whatever is meaningful to each one of you. I hope you all leave here today knowing something about Heather that you didn't know before. Knowing her and remembering her in a way that she would have wanted you to. Remember to feel the gladness, the happiness, the purpose and the serenity of a life so well lived. It is my honour to be conducting this ceremony today for Heather, her family and all of her friends. As a colleague and a friend to Alan and Tanya, I was fortunate enough to meet and develop a friendship with Heather and Mandy over the years. When Tanya first asked me to conduct the ceremony, my first thought was, I can't do that, I'll just cry. So I may do that, but above all, I am honoured to have this privilege bestowed upon me, to celebrate and say goodbye to the beauty that was Heather, Mum, and Ma, and Grandma. Before we remember Heather in all of her glory, I extend an invitation to everyone here to attend a Rimba RSL following the service to share a G&T, a story, and to celebrate the life of Heather Marjorie Railton. And so it is, in thinking of Heather and saying goodbye for the time being, that we can say thank you to her for welcoming us into her life and allowing us to share her journey. I asked Heather's grandsons for some words that reminded them of her, and they all said together, funny and lovable. Her family said she was unique, She was friendly to the nth degree and was incredibly positive. She loved everybody, and everyone loved her. Mandy said you always knew when you ran into someone at the shops that it wouldn't be a quick trip because Heather always took the time to get to know people, to listen to them and remember their names, their kids' names, and all of their family news. Heather was a foodie. She loved to cook, especially with Alan. And even when she couldn't cook anymore, she would sit at the stool at the kitchen bench and tell Alan how to cook. Alan recalls some of the best conversations with her, especially in the last 10 months, were with music on while they cooked together. At 5:30 every day, it was G&T time. Everywhere she travelled, she brought back gin. She was always looking for lunch spots, new places for dinner, and Alan would get into trouble if he ate before she took a photo of his plate. Heather was famous with the boys for her Anmar pie. To the uneducated, that's a shepherd's pie. I was reliably told by all of the boys that no one can make it like Anmar does. Heather was one of the most positive people I have ever met. She faced her illness with the same positivity that she lived every day of her life. Even on bad days, she would only ever give herself a few minutes down the rabbit hole before she'd pull herself back out, planning the next lunch spot, planning the next family birthday, or setting herself the next goal. During her illness, Heather only ever took Panadol for pain relief, and even when her body was scarred and battered, she did not complain. She had to sleep on her back from early in September, and yet she did not complain. She was determined, and she had an unstoppable strength of character. She prioritised her life in the last 10 months. She ate well, she saw people who mattered to her, and even her oncologist recorded on her records amazing attitude. That is the positivity that Heather brought to all of our lives, and the positivity that she would want us to take away from her time with us. Heather Marjorie Railton was born on the 15th of March 1954 at Royal North Shore Hospital. She was the second daughter to her parents Don and Doreen Kime and was a little sister to Gloria. Heather and her family moved to Gladesville in the 50s, and Heather attended Gladesville Primary School, where she was awarded the honour of Dux of the school. Henry, her grandson, now attends Gladesville Primary School and sees her name and is so proud when he sees it on the honour roll. From there, she attended Riverside Girls High and graduated in 1971. After finishing a teaching degree at Macquarie Uni, she decided she wanted to be a psychologist, so under the old Gough Whitlam government, she had to pay back her $600 fees. Alan remembers she gave up every Saturday night for 12 months doing night duties at a nursing home to pay off that fee. In 1971, the greatest love story began. Alan met Heather at Royal Ride Homes when they worked at Weemarla Hospital together. Alan was a wardsman and Heather was a nurse's assistant. Heather got herself a car, and in the most chivalrous way, Alan would hitch a ride home with her. Fortuitously, it also turned out that Alan lived with his family just a few doors down from the local hangout for the hospital, which was the Sawdust Hotel. In 1973, each ended their respective relationships with others, and the rest is history. In 1976, after a year at the Commonwealth Bank, Heather went back to do her Masters at Sydney University. You may all think this was a sign of dedication on her behalf, but Alan informs me that it was because he wouldn't marry her unless she had been to Sydney Uni. He said to me with that unassuming, proud look on his face, "I have standards, you know." So once she completed her Masters, he could marry her, which he did on the 3rd of December 1977 at Christchurch in Gladesville. Alan recalls it as the hottest day in history. Heather wore a long-sleeved, high-necked dress, most appropriate for the heatwave, to cover the rash she got when she was nervous. I myself have very fond memories of the love that Alan and Heather shared. I, like most of the legal profession on the Central Coast, recall seeing Alan and Heather strolling through the streets of Gosford hand in hand on his lunch breaks. Heather remembered all of our names and greeted us like old friends every time. Later, when I came to work with Alan, I remember the calls every morning tea. "Hello, Mrs. R. Hello, Mr. R," as they checked in on each other's days. Alan would get off the call whistling like a canary. It was such a beautiful companionship which touched all of those that were lucky enough to share it. In the 1970s, Heather began to work at Blacktown Health Centre, where she met the social worker there, Jan. They hit it off and they've remained friends over the decades. I now invite Jan to share her memories of Heather with us.
I haven't started yet. Hello, my name's Jan Williams. So for those of you, I should thank you, that was fantastic. For those of you who were around in 1978, just think of the glorious post-Whitlam era innovative community health program, community nurses in every school, cradle to grave, disability, aged care, family community-based, comprehensive services, no wait times in those days. Picture, just as fresh there, a fresh-faced young psychologist. She enters my room. We're the same age. She flings, and I mean flings, an armful of case files onto my desk, exclaiming, "What am I supposed to do with these?" She meant the people, not the actual files. Though, just as an aside, Heather has left me with a very clear retirement and office decluttering system. Chuck 'em out. From this moment, an enduring and endearing friendship is formed. As work colleagues in child and adolescent mental health in Sydney's western suburbs, I saw how Heather reached out, how she reacted to the anxieties that we each and every one experience. I came to appreciate over the years of knowing her as a friend just how she conducted her role as a daughter, a sister, mother, wife, and the extent of her amazing inner capacity to hold such anxieties. She did so with the great accompaniment of all sorts of creatures from the animal kingdom. Her passion for sport, it was just very synchronistic that she and Alan were West Magpies supporters like Raymond and I, and many years of doing physiculture and Alan's amazing intolerance for it. Not again, he would say as the competitions were coming up. She may not have known how to help a mother with an unruly child in those days, but she certainly knew how to regale us with the stories of their first pet, Ralph, the budgerigar, whose dipping in and out of basins, showers, creating morning havoc, caused much merriment at morning tea where we worked. Heather and I had this little token teacup. We would go past each other's office when it was time for a natter together. And then came Duffy, the first of many Newfoundlands. So she may not have known about babies, attachment theory, trauma-informed therapy, abandonment anxieties, but she was not going to abandon this great big black puppy. He would come into the centre until there was another puppy, or that he was able to stand on his own. I can't remember which it was. She may have had a lot to intellectually learn about the power of positive reinforcement, how to set up behavioural programs for parents, children's family systems, pursue distancing patterns. But when Heather was intent on showing, I think it was either Lucy or Sophie at the dog show. Do you remember, Alan, which dog? Lucy, wasn't it? At the dog show. she knew then when it was time to throw in the towel and follow this said dog out of the ring, which Lucy took great delight in doing, and she was laughing all the way. I seriously think her humour was a serious impediment in the land of dog obedience training. So there was a string of dogs, chooks, horses. Were there any goats? Yeah, goats that followed and departed. With this kind of liveliness, managing work and home, Heather's home was not always as pristine and beautiful, was it, Mandy, as it is today. Heather knew how to live and laugh in the messiness of life. She knew how to wipe away copious amounts of dog saliva from the muzzles of the many Newfoundlands that took up residence on all the furniture. Like her dogs, Heather was a giant of a woman. She was soft and vulnerable and a solid heart underneath. The ferocity of her powerful and foreboding spirit has provided the ship that many of us have sailed in with her in this last 12 months. I will be forever grateful for that. Okay, now picture Heather, not with one baby, but two babies. The first picture, I'm sitting at my desk. A phone call, urgent, speak to Heather from the ultrasound clinic. She's sobbing. I'm having twins. I'm going to have twins. I can't do it. I won't do it. I can't do it. Now forward to days before the delivery. Heather was enormous. Enormous. Not long before this, Heather had organised a staff purchase of a table tennis table for work. She was enormously pregnant, enormously anxious about the time ahead, and then she used this game to thrash out all her pent-up fears by slamming, I tell you, winner after winner after winner. So the babies, Amanda and Tanya, arrived. Heather's next expression of her terror was when she drove straight through the boom gates at Westmead Car Park Hospital. After the girls were still in hospital, we'd been for a visit. Laughing. She got out the other side, looked at this sort of broken boom gate, laughing. She had her own fierce determination, not only to survive, but to be a mother in her own way. Heather talked about the challenges of motherhood. Heather was a wonderful mother. Her honesty, and humanity gave her children excellent grounding. She was extremely confident in her children's abilities to do anything that they might turn their hands to, and she considered them praiseworthy in every aspect. But not just her children, we were all the beneficiaries of her failed normal critical facilities, her exuberant optimism. I trust and believe that this has left them and their children, her grandchildren, with an eternal, strong and lasting inner beliefs. We certainly garnered Heather and Alan as role models as how to conduct family life. In talking about her death, Heather said her role as a mother was to launch her children, that she considered them launched and she was ready for the next step. She magnificently took that step with respect, love and dignity. So to talk about Heather is like trying to condense a novel into a short story. There's the chapter on Heather as a grandmother. She adored her boys. She relished their love of her and Alan. She had many, many stories and games to have. There's the chapter on her relationship with Alan. It's actually too good, too painful, too close to home for me in any way to put any words to it right now. But I leave out her brilliant organisational skills. I'm sure there'll be many of you here. How will I do without her catch-up calls? I leave out her dreams for the future. I've mentioned that she showed an early ability to throw the towel in when needed. I haven't said near enough about her humour and laughter. We all speak of her laugh. It was a wonderful laugh of a generous woman who loved good company, good conversation, good food. I'm just going to quote now from a poem by Seamus Heaney on the death of his mother. She was there, then she was dead. The searching for a pulse beat was abandoned, and we all knew one thing by being there, that the space we stood around had been emptied into us to keep. I know I speak for many when I say I will miss her.
Thanks, Jan. In 1978, Alan and Heather bought their first house in Baulkham Hills for $49,500. Hard to believe these days. Shortly after that came Heather's second love, which we've just heard about, the Newfoundlands. Heather hunted down a breeder, and the Railtons had Newfoundlands in their home from 1980 to 2015, usually 3 at a time, and they all ruled the roost. The girls, Tanya and Mandy, were born in 1983. From this time, everything Heather did was for her family. She adored the girls even more than the Newfoundlands. Mandy and Tanya both have memories of sharing their parents' love with the Newfoundlands and sharing their food and the dog hair, and for Mandy, more dog hair, leading her to buy a Swiffer at a tender young age, quickly followed by a Robovac as soon as she could afford one. The Railtons stayed in Baulkham Hills until 1984. Alan had been working on the Central Coast and after much convincing had convinced Heather to settle on the coast, but she only wanted acres, and then she said she only wanted to live on one street, Glen Road, and so they did. Heather and Alan bought Glen Road in 1984 and lived in the cottage on the land until they built their own home in 1985. From those who know, this home now consists of the best games room around, soon to be followed up by a bike track with jumps and all. They settled into life on the land, which we've heard, with a multitude of animals. There were chickens, ducks, cows, Hazel, Tommy and Mary, Sylvan the horse and Pepsi the goat. There were many adventures with the animals. Tommy hated Alan and chased him into the chook pen, and Mary charged at Mandy when she was only a baby. Lucky Dad wasn't too far away. In 1988, Heather went to work as a school counsellor at St Joseph's. This meant school holidays were taken care of for the girls. It was there that she met Jeff. Now I'll invite Jeff to come and talk about his stories of his friendship with Heather.
Heather Railton
danced into my life a long time ago when the earth was flat and Alan Railton had hair. It was in fact 1988, and for some reason or other I was on the board of St Joseph's College at East Gosford. A quite mad nun with a heart of gold in the right place saw fit to employ Heather as a school counsellor. Mind you, Heather's tenure was almost very short indeed. The priestly representative on the board, one of those who looked upon all women with deep suspicion, thundered into a meeting one night and demanded to know what the construction next to the front entrance was. He certainly hadn't approved the expenditure of such a frivolity. The nun calmly explained that she had been driving past a construction, saw a site office, and asked the boss if he'd deliver it to the college, because she'd just employed a wonderful counsellor who couldn't really do her work sitting under a tree. The priest almost exploded on the spot. But Heather stayed, for a while at least, in what she called in the 1989 college yearbook her cubby house. She wasn't the first counsellor at Joey's, but Heather made that cubby house a safe place, an okay place to be. She normalised, as much as you can do for teenagers, reaching out for help. Word passed around the playground that Heather could be trusted, and from behind her ever-warm smile and reasonably large 1980s bouncing hair, Heather dispensed wise advice to staff and students alike. But Heather also mucked in, tramping through mud, torrential rain and howling wind on at least one Duke of Edinburgh Award adventure. I say at least one, she never went again. And wherever Heather's cubby house has been erected since, from doctor's surgeries to teleconferencing during COVID, Heather displays those trademark characteristics of hers: empathy in an abundance, positivity, and a gift for nudging people towards practical solutions. Empathy, practicality, and positivity. Heather virtues. We left St Joseph's at different times, but by that time I'd been lucky enough to be welcome onto the Alberget Ranch on Glen Road. Jewish people often refer to chicken soup as Jewish penicillin, soul food. Well, to be greeted by Alan, often charging around on a ride-on mower, being terrorised by animals, by Mandy and Tanya, and by Heather, was most assuredly good for the soul. Anybody who ate, played and talked with the Railtons came away feeling restored. Be it on a quick get-together, sharing an antipasto plate, or at events like the renewal of wedding vows. And at events, no doubt there would be Heather singing and dancing along to a jukebox belting out Dancing Queen. Except I didn't always come away from Glen Road feeling restored. Heather asked me to dog sit, yes, those Newfoundland terriers. Once, Heather and Alan, ran away for the weekend. The behemoth that was the slobbering Bartimaeus, the one that they had to teach English as a second language to because he was originally raised by an Italian, was fine. Another, whose name I forget, possibly the Lucy, I'm not sure, was placid. But Sophie was perfectly respectful and docile whenever Heather so much as looked at her, barked at me for 48 solid hours. The donkeys and the goats and the horses and the cows, not a problem. Sophie. One of the few times I ever heard Heather bark was in 2016 during the counting of the US presidential results. We'd advanced to WhatsApp by that stage, and I was on long service leave, giving a variety of friends updates on progress re Trump and Clinton. Heather was checking in between clients. By the time Trump had won and Heather had retreated to Glen Road, Her text messages were not only barking, but they were becoming somewhat slurred. Sensibly, when we went to the cricket at the SCG or even the MCG, the dogs were left behind. And at the end of the day, we'd visit cheap and cheerful restaurants like Captain Torres in the Spanish Quarter, or Greek hangouts like Diephanes. And during the magistrates' conference, Heather and Alan would turn their back on the official meal, preferring a cosier alternative in an Italian or someplace one or other of us had heard of. The food was important, but convivial company with an array of friends and friends of friends, from Glen Road, from Heather's counselling past, from Alan's life as a public defender, was far more important. It was easy to be around Heather, sharing a wine or two, and tales of holidays taken and yet to be taken. Not that Heather always did cheap and cheerful. After Tanya and Mandy took up with Luke and Adam and became the fine upstanding citizens we now know, not to suggest they weren't fine and upstanding earlier, I think it was Mandy maybe who had a car accident one night. I happened to be there. I think it was at Mandy. And to be there when Mandy phoned and she said, "I'm all right, but I haven't got any children." But to be there for those moments, and I went with Alan to pick up Mandy, it was just the way they snapped into practical love, both of them, was wonderful. Anyway, it was easy to be around Heather sharing a wine or two. I think I've said that. Not that Heather always did cheap and cheerful. After those fine upstanding children grew up, Alan quickly discovered, as if there was any doubt, that Heather's zest for travel had a distinctly 5-star bent. The best African safari lodges, the hotel with the superb view of the Petronas Towers in Kuala Lumpur, that butler on the cruise ship. Alan liked the butler too. My attempt to get them to come on a narrowboat holiday through English canals, where we'd need to leap off the narrowboat and open locks, sank without trace. Heather once told me that a dream job would be to specialise in sports psychology. She loved most sports: basketballing Sydney Kings, the Swannies, cricket and fizzy. I'm not at all sure what fizzy is. And is it a sport or is it a cult? Whatever it actually is, Heather adored it and gave it her all. Unsurprisingly, the breakaway that she was part of in the fizzy circuit was about perceived fairness and justice, two qualities that Heather personified. And let's not forget tennis. Kyrgios, yes or no? Rafa or Federer? And then there's the West Tigers. If Alan Jones's motivational skills could take the Wallabies to World Cup glory, surely Heather could have improved West. But the sport, along with Alan, that Heather enjoyed most took place in their backyard. Through her illness, she loved showing me the shed they built on the ranch, complete with a pool room and table tennis table and so on, for people who were easily her biggest love, the grandkids and the big kids. And over the phone she enthused about the wee BMX track that Alan had built next to the shed. Well, perhaps nobody could improve the West Tigers, but it's utterly true that Heather improved all who were privileged enough to move in her orbit. She nurtured all she knew. May we all, especially her family, be sustained by her memory and her legacy in the years ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. For anyone who knew Heather and have now listened to the previous two speeches, she loved physical culture, be it a cult or a club. It was a hobby that dominated Heather's non-social life, which then became her social life. She started Fizzy when she was 5 years old and only stopped competing when she was 60 years old. She then taught Fizzy for 10 years. She won Champion Lady on several occasions, or as Luke, her son-in-law, described it, she was the world champion of the Fizzy World Series. She had suitcases full of trophies and medals. Tanya remembers people telling her that Heather had a fizzy face, that people watched her and said she looked like she was having fun, and it's because she was having fun. I've been told that she was beautiful to watch on the floor. Heather not only loved to be involved in sport, but she loved to watch sport. Any sport, every sport, except, Alan says, synchronised swimming, although he says that she still may have watched that if there was nothing else on TV. She was known to put all 3 TVs on in the house at once, on the cricket, and watch the whole test match as she cleaned the house or she potted around. She'd be doing her thing and suddenly everyone would hear her call, "Wicket!" and the dogs would bark and everyone would come running from wherever they were in the house. Another one of Heather's loves in life, which we've heard about, is travel. Every time you spoke to her, she was planning another trip. Alan started telling me all of their destinations: New York, Niagara Falls, Washington, England, Ireland, Scotland, Wales, South America, Paris, Switzerland, Italy, Europe, Egypt, Africa, Alaska, Canada, the Kimberleys, Southeast Asia, Japan, China, Botswana, Zimbabwe, Malaysia, Borneo, Vietnam, Russia, Norway, Iceland, New Zealand, and then they were going back to England when COVID struck. I may have missed a few because I couldn't keep up. But what did become abundantly clear is that Heather and Alan ticked off every single destination on their bucket list, and they ticked it off together. Everything they did together. Later in life, Heather met Cheryl through Neighbours at Glen Road. Their friendship was cemented when Heather and Cheryl were working together for John Schultz and Laurie Ransom in the late 1990s. Together they were part of a large group of couples who used to travel together, and Cheryl was always leaving some flowers in gumboots at their front doors or delivering plates of sandwiches after a hard day of treatment or hospital visits. If I could invite Cheryl now to the stand to have your memories of Heather.
Well, thank you for letting me follow those previous two speakers. I'm very happy about that. Caring, funny, beautiful, intelligent, empathetic. These are some of the words I could use to describe my friend, our friend Heather, the one whose smile lit up a room. It has been my honour to know Heather for over 30 years. Originally we met through friends, but then she came to work at my place of employment. We always had fun working together, and it was always a joy to see her walk into the place. We then became family. We formed this amazing group of friends who have shared so many wonderful times together. Literally births, deaths, marriages, and lots of fun. Heather and Alan both led very busy, stressful work lives, so it was always great when they could join us to have some fun where they could unwind. We have had many themed dinners, weekends away, Christmas in July dinners, Australia Day gatherings, royal wedding parties, where her official title was Heather, Archduchess of Albert, after the family estate. We also had 2 wonderful weekends away at St Albans, staying at the old courthouse. On one occasion we held a host a murder night, which was absolutely amazing. The decorations were incredible. We looked fantastic. But it was a bit like an Underbelly series. There were a few shady characters around. The second time we decided to hold a mock trial, seeing we were in a courthouse. Someone stepped forward to be the judge. And I think Heather believes that she did actually have a law degree because she was a formidable prosecutor. She had acquired her qualifications purely by absorption and association, and that did not stop her in any way. She was very convincing in her role. Had the stance, had the terminology, she was good. But my fondest memory was seeing Heather prancing across the State Theatre stage in Sydney wearing reindeer antlers, at a Sing with the Sound of Music show. She happily was one of the 8 female deer when we did this, surrounded by a lot of nuns, brown paper packages, and a lot of favourite things. But we won a prize, and boy, we were proud, weren't we, girls? At work the following week, when we were there on the same day, she came up to me, looked me in the eye and said, "I do things for you that I would never do for anybody else." And to this day, I'm very honoured by that. Heather spent her life helping people, and I know that many owe so much to her for her compassion, advice, empathy and kindness. She was an intuitive psychologist. She understood people, and she was an amazing friend. She was loved by all of her extended family, but her greatest role was that of wife, mother and grandmother. Her eyes twinkled when she and Alan were together. They were a match made in heaven. She was so proud of Mandy and Tanya, and Adam and Luke, the wonderful young men that they married. But those 4 beautiful little boys were the icing on the cake. We would share photos of our boys regularly so we could keep up with their adventures and their activities, and a prouder grandmother you wouldn't find. When she became ill, her fighting spirit came out. I told her she was the strongest person I've ever known, and boy, she put up a good fight. In the end, she was tired, and she had no fight left. I know she knew how loved she was, and when she left us, she was peaceful, surrounded by love, and with her beautiful family by her side. I vow that we will look after your family for you, Heather. Fly high, my beautiful friend. It's time for you to rest now.
Thank you, Cheryl. After the dogs were not in the Railton's life anymore, they began spending more time back in Sydney. Heather loved the theatre, the ballet, and it was where her grandchildren were. Her daughters were there and several of her friends. She'd watch 3 games of T-ball, 3 games of soccer, and then head out to the theatre. Her grandkids were her hobby in her later years: Ryan, Henry, Daniel, and Otis. To her grandsons, Heather made everything fun. She spoiled the boys, took them to the theatre. She took them to School of Rock, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, and Billy Elliot, where I'm reliably told that's where they all learnt to swear. Henry told me all about his Grandma and Henry days, where Heather would take him for dumplings, kick a ball, drink lemonade, and eat chips. Ryan remembers snuggling up with her on the couch once the little boys were all in bed, because he was so grown up at the ripe old age of 9. Daniel remembered Grandma always beating him at table tennis, and her super fast serve. She was one of those types that didn't believe in the kids winning unless it was fair and square. Otis remembers Anmar's biscotti and her tacos. All the boys remembered playing pie face with Heather, and Heather being covered in whipped cream all over her face, all over her hair, and just laughing it off with the boys. Heather was that grandma. She was that mum, and she was that wife. She was that friend, that one that you always wanted around, the one that was genuine, and the one that made a room alive when she was in it. We're now going to have a video presentation to celebrate Heather's life.
Here comes the sun, doo-doo-doo. Here comes the sun, and I say it's alright. Little darling, it's been a long, cold, lonely winter. Little darling, it feels like years since it's been here. Here comes the sun. Here comes the sun, and I say it's alright. Little darling, the smiles returning to the faces. Little darling, it seems like
today, we acknowledge our appreciation for the privilege of sharing a part of Heather's life. Even though Heather has left us, the influence and effect of her life on each one of us is still evident as we speak her name. And so we say that we are glad that Heather lived. We are glad we saw her face. We are glad that we felt her touch and we heard her laughter. We are comforted to know that her pain has ended, her spirit is free, and that she leaves this life satisfied in the knowledge that she has accomplished her tasks. We will forever cherish the memory of Heather's positivity, her resilience, her wisdom, her friendship, and most of all, her love. Be grateful that Heather was part of our lives, and let her positivity, her character, her lovely warmth, and her deeds live on. We must remember that a wife's love, a mother's love, a grandmother's love, and a friend's love is something that is never forgotten. If love is one thing that can be passed down from generations to generations, then Heather did her job. For the love that was in your heart is now in ours, and we can never forget you. Your love surrounds us every day, and you're a part of us forever. Rest in peace.
I've been dreaming, friendly faces. I've got so much time to kill. Just imagine people laughing. I know someday we will. And even if it's far away, get me through another day. Cover me in sunshine, shower me with good times. Tell me that the world's been spinning since the beginning, and everything'll be alright. Cover me in sunshine. From a distance, all these mountains are just some tiny hills. Wildflowers, they keep living high. They're just there and still. I've been missing yesterday, but what if there's a better place? Cover me in sunshine, shower me with good times. Tell me that the world's been spinning since the beginning, and everything'll be alright. Cover me in sunshine, shower me with good times. Tell me that the world's been spinning since the beginning, and everything'll be alright. Cover me in sunshine. La 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 la. Cover me in sunshine, shower me with good times. Tell me that the world's been spinning since the beginning, and everything'll be alright. Cover me in sunshine. I've been dreaming, friendly faces. I've got so much time to kill. Just imagine people laughing. I know someday we will. And even if it's far away, get me through another day. Cover me in sunshine, shower me with good times. Tell me that the world's been spinning since the beginning, and everything'll be alright. Cover me in sunshine. From a distance, all these with good times. Tell me that the world's been spinning since the beginning, and everything will be